Hi everyone, I'm Steph, this is Phoebe, and we are travelling around Tasmania at the moment in our Prado. So today we're going to talk a bit about travelling over on the Spirit of Tasmania. Some people do get a bit anxious about putting their dogs on the Spirit, so let's have a talk about it and see how you feel at the end. So I did a lot of research, and like most people, you come across all the bad stories about the sad instance where the dog went missing on the boat and was never found. Then there have been deaths. Most recently there's been those deaths of the horses on the boat. Now just remember, when you are thinking about these horrible things, that it is just a small percentage. You know, they don't brag about the thousands of animals that travel every year and survive the journey. It is unfortunately the sad ones that make the headlines, and they are sad and they are tragic, and I can't even imagine what the owners go through. So I totally understand that, but there are ways of getting your dog or pet to Tasmania. Now I know there are other options rather than just a ferry. There is the option of flying them. That is definitely an option that, you know, is open to everybody. Please look into it. I guess this is a good point to just put a disclaimer out there. This is just Phoebe's and I's journey to Tasmania. It doesn't mean this is what you should do. Do your own research, speak to your own vet, and make your own decisions. Phoebe and I just did it this way because that's what worked for us, and that's what I decided on. So there are two options to get your dog over to Tasmania on the ferry. The first one, and the most obvious, is booking a kennel for your dog. So there are crates on the ventilated decks for your dogs. They're various sizes. Some people complain that the people with the smaller dogs put them in the larger cages and vice versa. So, you know, you don't know really what you're going to get. They get water regularly though, and they do get checked on, I think, every 4 hours. So that is a bit of peace of mind for those that do want their dogs to be checked on, because during your sailing you are unable to go visit your pet. So for 12 hours they are on their own. So that is a consideration of whether or not you want them to be checked on or not, because if you choose option 2, which is to leave your dog in your car, van or caravan, they will not be checked on. It is totally up to you what happens there. You cannot go down there. They'll literally be on their own for 12 hours. If you want to leave your dog in the car, it's absolutely fine with the ferry. You just have to request a waiver form so that they have no liability. So they're not liable if anything happens to your pet during the journey. It's all down to you. So if something happens, there's nothing you can do about it. So you do need to think about that aspect, about the safety of your pet. Are they okay in your vehicle, or do they need to be monitored in a crate? If you do want to leave them in the car, you've got up to 24 hours before the sailing to return the waiver form. So as soon as you decide, request it from the Spirit of Tasmania, get it filled in and sent back before 24 hours before you leave. You can't do it at the terminal, it's too late. They need to know before you sail. With Phoebe, I weighed up a lot of pros and cons, so even though I had the kennel booked, I still had the option of filling in the waiver form to leave her in the car, and that's actually what I ended up doing. The reasons were that I wanted her to be comfortable on the sailing, and I wanted her to be in a familiar place. She does have separation anxiety. She gets really anxious when she's separated from people, so I thought being in her own environment with her own bed, own smells, would be the perfect place for her. I think leaving her in a crate, she would go a bit ballistic. She would get really scared, really anxious, really stressed. She could hurt herself, and I really don't want that to happen. She's also going to be exposed to other animals, other dogs around her on the ferry, in the crates around her, and that could wind her up even further, and I just really don't want her to be anxious. I want to have a really calm sailing, especially because I can't check on her. So I decided to leave her in the car. So once I decided to leave her in the car, I needed to make sure the car was fit for purpose. So she already has her bed, which she sleeps on during the day when there's back seats up when we're traveling. So it was going to stay like that. That was going to be her safe space for the journey. I also got in a Sirocco fan. So people use this a lot in van life, and in vans and installments. They're really good. They're really low draw power. And I've just cable tied it to the top here, and I've got the auto electrician to put a cigarette connector on the end, because there's a cigarette lighter plug in the boot of the Prado, and I actually had that changed over on recommendation from the auto electrician to draw from the second battery, so it doesn't come from the main battery. So if I ever use it, especially with the fan, it's not drawing power from the main battery. I also did a couple of other things to get Phoebe ready to sail. So I bought these window inserts from Super Cheap Auto. So they come like that. They just expand like that. They sit on your window and then tuck in up the top when you close it. So you have about that much space between. So that lets air in. So ventilation is really important when they're in the car and on deck, because obviously it's already a stuffy place anyway. You just want to make sure they're getting enough air through the vehicle so you have no problems. So there was one each for each side. That was really good. And then just to help, because I couldn't then use the window covers, because the type of window covers I have, I used the mesh that I put over the window to keep out mozzies and flies and stuff like that. So that just helped darken it in the back. So she had ventilation coming through, she had the fan on, and she couldn't get out, which is really important. So we had the car ready, the waiver was signed and returned in time. So the last bit was medication. So going into Tasmania, you do need to worm your dog against the hydrated tapeworm. That's not part of Phoebe's normal worming tablet. So we had to go to Pet Stock and buy that before we left for Tasmania. We couldn't do it in Darwin because we needed to do it within 2 weeks of sailing. So I think we left Darwin just over 3 weeks before sailing. So that wasn't going to work. So when I got to Victoria, I popped into a local Pet Stock, asked what, said what I needed, and they had it there. So it was really easy. It's not difficult to find this worming tablet. And I gave it to her a couple of days before sailing, kept the receipt to prove that I'd given it to her within the 2 weeks, and signed the form that they sent with the booking information. I then also, before I left Darwin, went and saw our local vet. So the vet was really understanding. Phoebe is a Doberman. She does suffer from separation anxiety. It's kind of part of their nature. They are protection dogs. They're supposed to be with you all the time. They're meant to be, they call them Velcro dogs. They're with you all the time. And Phoebe is very much true to type. And at home I can manage it with wonderful support from my family and doggy daycare to take her mind off things. But on the ferry, I was just concerned she would be worried when I left the car, and she'd be stuck in the car on her own for quite a long period of time. So I was really looking for something, some devices to how to calm her down. The vet did prescribe some medication. We tried it a couple of times before we left just to make sure it worked, the dosage was correct, and that she didn't get any ill effects. Sorry, there's some ducks outside. She's very, very interested in the ducks. I hope she doesn't go through the window. So we did get some medication for the trip. Just to say again, all these things that I'm doing is just my journey with Phoebe. Everyone's different. Some dogs may not need medication. Some dogs might not even need extra bits and pieces in the car to get through, or your caravan if you've got fans already in there. This is just what I decided would work best for us. She's found the ducks. And I just wanted to be overly prepared because it was such a big sailing and a big thing, and something I really didn't want to go wrong. When I booked the tickets, I did book nighttime sailings, so that way Phoebe had all day to run around. I could wear her out, keep her awake, take her to the dog park, do all the fun things, so she'd be actually quite tired in the evening. And naturally she'd want to go to sleep at nighttime anyway, so I was just hoping that it'd be just natural to go onto the boat and she'd just sleep through the journey. That was the plan. I thought a daytime sailing, she'd be awake, she'd be wound up, she won't need to sleep, and it would just make it a bit more difficult. So we chose to go at night. So the day of the sailing, we spent a day out and about. We had lots of different things going on. We went on a ferry ride, just a little one. And we went to the dog park and we had a great time. It was raining that day, so it was all sorts going on. But yeah, so we just had a great day out, just trying to wear Phoebe out and keep her awake. And then when we got to the terminal, we got there probably about half an hour early before they opened, but they were open anyway. We went through to quarantine. They checked my car, the fridge, all that kind of stuff. Make sure I wasn't taking any food into Tasmania that I'm not allowed to. And they checked Phoebe's worming tablet confirmation. I got given a special coloured tag for my windscreen so that I knew Phoebe was on board, and that would be directed to a ventilated deck to park. We went through and we just waited then. We were just waiting in the terminal to go through. It was going to be at least an hour or so until we were let on. That was when I gave Phoebe her medication, because then it gave it time to work and she was in relaxed state after being at the dog park. She just chilled out and she actually fell asleep for a little while. I was just reading my book. I already had my overnight bag packed. I didn't want to be doing that and waking Phoebe up and getting her all riled up because I was getting ready to go somewhere. I had it ready to go on the front seat, so all I had to do was grab it and walk, and no sort of fuss. So yeah, I was just chilling and waiting with the book. Then we got allowed to board, so we drove on up to the ferry. Phoebe was sort of quite interested, watching what was going on, but she wasn't too concerned. When we got onto the ferry, I didn't get straight out and go out and up to the cabin at all. I actually waited till the last possible moment to leave the deck. I didn't want to leave Phoebe with people walking past, banging into the car, knock on the windows and the mirrors, and just sort of waking her up and disturbing her. So I did wait till the last possible moment to leave the car, and when I did, I literally just grabbed my bag and just calmly left. It wasn't a big issue. It didn't disturb her. She kind of looked. I waited behind the car to see if she made any noise. She didn't. She was quite calm, and then you just kind of have to go. So I went on up. It was a rough crossing, and I had all these visions in my head of her getting sick, or sitting in the front seat and beeping the horn, or setting the car alarm off, all these bad things, you know. But in the end, when I got down in the morning, she was absolutely fine. She was just waking up as I got in the car because she started hearing people walk past. I think I was like the second or third person out the door because I was so keen to see what she was up to. She gave me a lick when I got in the car, and then she settled back down, wanting to get back to sleep. It was quite early in the morning. So I'd say that was pretty successful. The fact that she was fine, the car wasn't destroyed, there was no alarms going off, she was just chilled, and she went back to sleep was the best. I couldn't have asked for better. So I was really pleased that everything that I put in place worked, and that I had a very calm, happy dog at the other side. Another quick tip I forgot to mention was the day of the sailing. So I sailed at night. I fed her in the morning previously, but I didn't feed her all day, just so she didn't have a funny tummy on the boat. So that's another thing, and they do mention that in the pack anyway, that you get when booking. But yeah, just don't feed them close to the ferry ride time, just so they've got a bit of an empty tummy. So yeah, I was really pleased. I'll probably follow everything to the T again when we go back, but I will update you when we go back and see how it went. And hopefully this time I'll be a bit calmer and sleep a bit better, because I won't be worried about Phoebe, because I think she will be absolutely fine. And yeah, you know, again, this is my journey. You don't have to take it any which way. Just think about how you want to travel with your dog, how your dog does travel, what kind of obstacles you may come across, how can you help them with that. And you know what, if you choose actually you're still not sure about traveling, then don't stress yourself, don't stress your dog out. If now's not the right time, don't worry. Tasmania's not going anywhere. And if you want to fly them instead of taking them on the ferry, that's fine too. And if you've got a dog that's super chilled, then that's amazing. So, you know, just do what works for you when it works for you. This is just Phoebe's and mine story. I'm really glad it was a happy one, and we're really lucky because now we get to see Tasmania. So all the planning and preparation was so worth it, and we're very lucky. So thanks for watching, and I hope it helps. Bye.